Yeah.
When they say MAE, what are they talking about? A different scope of proposed system. Is that in here?
Yeah, it sure is. I think it's alternate. Usually it's the alternates.
Oh, I see.
A, B, and C.
For alter problem and work. Yeah, I guess I agree too.
No news, huh? They ever call?
Sure, but you gotta know what you're talking about.
Did we ever? Let's talk afterwards. Depends what they got in them.
Well, like I said, hopefully it moves forward and it's, pick, go like, well,
Oh yes, of course. It doesn't sound familiar, but I have other similar examples. You know. And they all without building permits, you know. Well, he couldn't have a building permit to build something illegal. Yeah. People just are going to push the envelope. Well, you certainly have every right to say, why do you need a building like that to farm 20 acres? That's a viable question. What's your list of equipment, huh? Of course. Those are legitimate questions. What equipment are you storing in it? What do you own?
Yeah, and that's obviously part of it. Yeah.
So definitely as long back as far back as I know he's been probably since some of that it's hard to keep track of.
Good evening. I want to call to order the Joint Plan Commission and the Village Board meeting for the Village of Waukesha at 6:30 PM on March 13th, 2025. Please stand and join me in a pledge of allegiance. Roll call, please. Plan Commission first.
Fregine, Buckholz, Niles,
Here.
Stigler,
Here.
Webb, Heckers, Dable.
Village Board, please.
Niles.
Here.
White.
Here.
Stigler.
Here.
Adams.
Here.
Buckholz.
Here.
The open meeting law and compliance check. The agenda was posted and/or distributed to the public. A news media likely to give notice in the area. All news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws before 6:30 PM on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, citizen comments. Anybody have something they want to get up and say at this point regarding the agenda?
Good evening, everyone. Mike Portrait, West 231, South 5205, Hunters Hollow. In the previous meeting on February 27th, the majority of the board voted to move forward with a new DPW building. Tonight, the board's going to be discussing the cost estimate from Reichert Milke to write the plans and specifications for that building. Reichert Milke has been working for and with the Village of Waukesha for many years, and I think they've done an outstanding job. I believe that they have the correct personnel and engineers that will work with us and put together a good package for specifications and get the package out for bid. Some people might think that the cost is a little high. I'm estimating that cost to be only about 6% of what the estimate for the project is. And as we all know, engineers, architects, attorneys, all these professional people are not cheap, but we need all their expertise to put this together. And I believe this is going to be the most efficient and quick resolution to get this building project going. The board's got to keep moving forward on it. If we don't, pretty much dead in the water, and we could probably just shut the DPW down and get a contractor to do everything. But we've got to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Moving on. Approval of previous meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025. I believe the Plan Commission, or did we not have a meeting that night?
No, that was the ones we did have.
Okay, we did have a meeting that night. I can't remember which one. All right. I'll approve the meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025. Moved and seconded. All those in favor in the Plan Commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Village Board, your preference on the minutes?
Move to accept the recommendation from the Plan Commission.
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission on the meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Hearing number 1, notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing involving the Village of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Village Board will be held on Thursday, March 13th, 2025, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Village Hall located at West 250 South 3567 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, for an accessory building waiver request for quantity and total size of the existing accessory buildings. For petitioner Anthony Storniolo, property owner Anthony and Andrea Storniolo, location South 47 West 23365 Lonsdale Road. I hereby declare the public hearing open. Mr. Malarkey, do you want to enlighten us?
Sure. We took a look at this property in 2023 for conceptual land division. Here's the property in the southeast corner of Mill Creek and Lonsdale. Essentially a 9.85 acre property. They're looking to divide it into 2 lots. So this is brought conceptually. The difference between now and then was that the access is different. And I'm gonna talk about the certified survey map as well as the waiver because they're connected. They're looking to divide the 2 parcels into 2 lots, and as such, they're consolidating all of the existing buildings onto 1 lot. So that's the house, the barn, a couple sheds, and the well. And so residential properties are limited to 3 accessory dwelling units and a certain percentage based on the size of the lot. In this case, the 4 accessory buildings total 4,740 square feet. And with the reduced size of Lot 1, which is now going to be 4.58 acres, Lot 2 will be 5.26. For Lot 1, they're limited to 2,998 square feet and 3 buildings. And so because they're exceeding that, these are existing accessory buildings, but because they're exceeding that on the creation of a new lot, they need a waiver. The waiver, in fact, was discussed conceptually back in September 2023. The feedback was generally positive, provided the existing buildings were in good condition. And the petitioner has provided photos in the packet of these existing buildings as well. So there are a series of, on page 2 of my staff report, essentially considerations that the Plan Commission and Board has to evaluate as to whether or not to grant a waiver. You don't necessarily have to find an affirmative for all of the factors, but you do have to at least consider all of the factors. While I'm on the topic of the whole thing, so I don't have to go over it again in terms of the CSM, Lot 1 is now going to have access onto Mill Creek Trail. Proposed Lot 2 is going to have access onto Lonsdale Road. They already have permits from Waukesha County for removal of the existing driveway for Lot 1 and the creation of the new driveway for Lot 2. So everything else meets the zoning ordinance. I know Greg is probably going to have a few comments about the CSM, but I suspect we can wait till we get to that agenda item for that. So that's all I have.
Okay. You want to wait till later, Greg?
Yeah, that probably
All right.
makes sense. Sure.
Okay. Okay, anybody else want to comment at the public hearing on this item right now? Come on up.
Sandy Homwist, 230 South 3827 Milky Way Road. I'm in favor of waivers when there's a need, and I remember this application back in September 23, and it looks like they've done a really good job of resolving the issues with the driveway on Lonsdale and moving one of them over onto the other road. And I can't imagine us asking them to tear down any buildings just so they can do it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, come on up.
Angie Buchanan, Woodchuck Lane. I'm still confused about this driveway and whether or not it's going to
Can you give the
cut
specific address, your number, please?
W233 S4920, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm confused about this driveway and where on Mill Creek it's going to come out And is it going through any of the existing houses that are there? Is it going between any of them to get to Mill Creek? Is there an easement required? I'm not sure where on Mill Creek we're bringing this out. Can you show something more specific?
I could show something. So the public hearing is essentially about the number of accessory buildings, not about the CSM. So that's a different matter. But in terms of the driveway coming out, essentially the driveway is going to come from their existing drive from there out to Mill Creek right here. So it's not passing into their homes. It's just on their property coming straight west.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll move on to number 8. Hearing number 2, notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing involving the Village of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Village Board will be held on Thursday, March 13th, 2025, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Village Hall located at West 250, South 3567, Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, for an accessory building waiver request for quantity and total size of the accessory buildings. Petitioners James Britton, property owner James and Cheryl Britton, location is West 225, South 5201 Guthrie Road. I declare the public hearing open. Mr. Malarkey?
Sure. This is a little different than the last request in that this is a new building being proposed. There's some existing accessory buildings, but because this new building is being proposed, it's over the size and over the quantity. The petitioner owns 3 different properties. They own the subject property, which is 12 plus acres here with the existing home, few accessory buildings, and where the proposed accessory building is going to go. They also own the property directly south, which was split off in 2023 with a new home, and then they own the large property to the southwest of that, which is another 67 acres. There are some environmental corridors and wetlands on some of these properties, and there's also some farmland as well that the petitioner farms. What he's asking for essentially is a new 6,240 square foot accessory building that's on the north side of the existing property here, for the purpose of storage and maintenance of farm equipment. The building itself will be 28 feet high. It'll have metal siding, metal roof, and then some ornamentation on the roof, some cupolas as well. The building is stated to match the color, siding, and roof of some of the existing structures on the property. Here's the plan. So in this case, north is to the right. Here's the building, essentially 60 feet by 104 feet. It's got an overhang as well. That's part of it. So the petitioner has submitted as part of the application a narrative in terms of the need for the waiver request. I won't go over that, and I'll allow the petitioner to do that essentially. But what's being proposed here meets the requirements of the zoning district. It just, again, it exceeds the size. Right now, the subject property is 12.2 acres. They're allowed up to 7,900 square feet of existing accessory building square footage. The additional building is going to put them over. It's going to be 12,354 total square feet. So that does exceed it. There's 3 existing accessory structures, and this one would put them over to 4. The petitioner, I also have a picture in here, essentially what the property looks like. Here's the existing house. That's the detached garage, the barn in back, and there's a milk house shed here. The barn's got a couple silos associated with that as well. So this will be a metal building. The application doesn't talk about the colors, and we should ask in terms of what the colors will be for the proposed barn as well, to see exactly what they're matching, is whether it's the house or the accessory building. The height is 28 feet high. Normally we allow up to 18 feet only, but we do allow the Plan Commission Board to accept a height as high as 28 feet, provided that the setbacks are increased by 2 feet for each additional foot in height above 10 feet. So in this case, the nearest offset from any property line is 185 feet. So they do meet that requirement. So you would be able to approve a building height of 28 feet if you have a mind to do so. So that's all I have for the overview on that.
Okay, anybody else have any issues about questions, concerns? Is the petitioner here? Yes. Do you want to address this or anything? Tell us what you're thinking.
I'm Jim Britton, West 225, South 5201, Guthrie Road. And I guess the real problem, I mean, to cut it down to as few words as possible, is the existing barn that's there. If I use that in conjunction with the barn that I'm building, would like to build, it puts me over on square footage. And the reason, I mean, I really would not like to take this barn down. It's a nice barn. I put a lot of money into it, and we still use it for farming and agriculture. And the other barn, which I'm proposing, would allow me to do things like maintain the existing equipment that I have, store the equipment that I have, and still use the existing barn for hay and such. So there's a need for it, given the fact that I have a separate parcel here and a separate parcel there, does not allow for me to, creates the excess. And so if I were to have an existing barn that I have in the new barn and put them together, it puts me over. If I take that barn down, then it causes, it would allow me to have the necessary square footage to build the new barn. So that's pretty much all I have.
Could you speak to the fact of why, so help us understand, the existing barn, you can't use that for this type of thing? Because
Yeah, so the existing barn was built in 1901, and it was made for hay storage. And it's, you can't insulate it. I've had several people out to, that was our original idea, is that we were going to improve that barn, but I was advised not to by several professionals, just because the barn was not made for that purpose. So in order to have heat or updated electric or any of the things that you would use to, maintain equipment, I could not do that with the existing barn.
And you understand you can't use this new building for anything other than residential and agricultural use?
Correct.
Right?
I would just
You
be
can't
using-
run a business out of here, you can't have business equipment in here?
Exactly. No business. I want to retire and farm. That's what I want to do.
How many acres are you farming?
So we have a total of just under 100, and so I'm new to this, so we're starting with probably right now, we're at 10, 15, but we're growing as we go along. So I'm just trying to get a handle
Most
on
of
it.
your property is woods.
The back end of it is woods, but the front end of it, the 60 acres, there's plenty of area there to farm. Yeah,
There's a series of smaller fields on the properties, right?
And if you go down a little further, you can see, maybe this is it right here, where we started, that area, that's where we started, this area where we started. And, just trying to get a handle on that.
Excuse me, why do you have 8 garage doors on this building?
The reason why we have 8 garage doors is to get equipment in and out as easily as possible. And so that if you were working on one specific piece of equipment, you could move it in or out without having to go in and around each of the other equipment. Question.
I'm Russ Chicks, RJC Construction. I'm actually a friend of Jim's and will be his contractor if he goes forward with it.
You want to give your name and address too, please,
Yeah,
for the record, please?
sure. It's Russ Chicks. I actually live in Milwaukee, 1415 East Potter Avenue in Milwaukee. RJC Construction. The drawing is not doesn't give it a fair representation. There's actually gonna be glass doors on it just to make it look nicer. This was the original inspirational drawing or picture that we found for the, to make the place look nice. We don't realize it's gonna be seen from the road, but I don't know if you guys want to have a couple copies of it if you want to see it. But there will be glass doors on it facing the north, pardon me, the overhang section that's 10 feet overhang that faces the north, and then there will be a large door. I believe it's at the west, a large overhead door for a larger truck. But we're gonna try to match it to the house, the existing house that's there. I think it has a black roof on it and the siding is white.
So it's gonna be white, it's gonna be white and black?
White
to-
and black, and it'll have, hidden fasteners. You know, it's not just your typical pole barn steel. So it'll look a
It's got a
little,
10-foot patio as well?
that was part of his dimensions. It was a 10-foot by 104 feet.
Yeah, if you look,
Overhang on
this
the,
is,
to the north.
this is the overhang here, it's,
Okay.
But these doors, they're actually gonna be glass panels.
We're trying to make it look nice.
Yeah, for a storage unit, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're
Equipment.
storage and equipment.
but you can see in then the equipment that's in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Be able to see.
I'm just having a little trouble
No, you're good.
visualizing this.
Yep.
How much equipment do you have, or what kind of equipment, I guess?
Well, I have 4 tractors right now, skid steer, we have, you know.
Excavator.
Excavator, yeah.
There's a substantial amount of equipment there.
Come up to the microphone, please, if you're talking.
Where's this equipment being stored now? I mean, you look at the pictures, there's nothing on site. There's not a piece of equipment on site except for a car in the garage.
Things right now are in the back of the fence rows around the property, more towards the back by the backside.
You want to get up to the microphone, because everybody wants to hear you.
Yep, sorry, the equipment right now is parked around the property, basically in the fence row, sitting outside right now, rusting, basically. A lot of the tractors, are sitting outside behind the barn, 'cause we can't get some of those inside the barn right now.
There's actually quite a bit of equipment
Yep.
right now. It's under the street.
Yep, then also towards the back by the pond, there's a bunch of equipment back there also. We got chisel plows and cultivators and plows and stuff around there. We also, the farm is planning to hay right now. We plan on also doing our own hay and trying to sell that off too in the future. So we're planning to use the old barn for.
He needs to identify himself.
Yeah, could you give your name and address too, please, for the record?
J. Larson, 180, S7944 Pioneer, Muskego.
Okay.
Guess another question I got, why would you put a covered patio out to the north instead of facing the house?
Yeah, because there's, well, if you show the picture again, there's,
which picture do you want?
so the picture of
The
the
overview
house
of the property.
from the barn, where the pole barn is going to be.
Oh, that one, okay.
Yeah, there you go. So, right, if the existing barn's here, there's all this space out here that you can, you can have equipment staged if you need to have it with,
If we had the overhang on this side, there wouldn't be very easily access through the garage doors from the driveway. So there's
more
actually
space.
kind of a view from this side with that porch facing north. But off of the driveway, then there would be access to the garage doors.
So many communities that I represent have struggled with this because it's a 12-acre parcel. And you sell off the farmland, what would anybody do with all of this accessory structure?
Yeah, I just built a new house on the 13-acre parcel. I have no intention on selling any of the property. And I have the 67 acres on the other side. And this has been a lifelong dream of mine to do this, to
Well,
farm it.
I don't think anybody here is questioning that. We're saying what happens when you're not the same, then 67-acre parcel isn't attached to this. What would anybody do with all of this building, when they have no ag to farm?
Yeah, I guess I don't know, the purpose of it is for agriculture, and that's what I want it for. And honestly, what the future holds for something like that after I'm gone, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I don't know. This is what honestly, I thought I had the acreage and everything to build this. And if you actually tie in the next parcel to it, then I'm not over. But this was the spot that was most advantageous to everybody, I think.
I guess I just question the size. This is a very, very large building. For the amount of acres that you're talking about farming, I guess, I'll be honest with you, I farm 1,700 acres and I have a building that size. I have 2 semis, a combine, 4 tractors, 2 corn planters, a grain drill, and a flatbed trailer in that shed right now. This is just way above and beyond what I would consider to farm, the equipment that you're gonna need to farm that amount of land. But that's my opinion.
Okay.
Why not any of the other properties you've got as far as this building goes?
So there's a house that I'm building on the 13-acre parcel next to it. And to be perfectly honest with you, because it's right next to the existing barn, and it just makes more sense logistically, you know, if you have your equipment near where you're gonna be storing, you know, hay or whatever, what have you, it just makes more sense. And this is the new house that's going up right there. So we just did a CSM for this to allow access to the road. So that is the reason why we're putting it where it is it's just, you know, in the center of where the, you know, the access to the road is. It just, logistically, it makes the most sense.
So Shauna, if you combine those, we'd have an issue because there's 2 residences on it then.
Right, if you would to tear one of the old residents down, if you'd raise that and combine them, you wouldn't have an issue. You'd have an issue in the total number of accessory buildings, but not square footage. I can't remember, do you have an accessory building on this property too, the one with the new house? You don't, okay. I couldn't remember if you were building one or not. So, you know, that would obviously be enough acreage then. It would still be too many buildings by one, but, you know, you could always remove the milk house or something.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, we have a tenant who's been with that land for years and years. I mean, he was born there. And I don't want to remove him from the property. That's his home. And so I think our intent is, you know, once he moves on, that's probably what we'll end up doing. But he's been there for forever. He put that horse track in. And he had all the horses there, and I would never remove him from the property. Yeah.
Could you put it to the north side of the house you're building, on the west side of that road?
To the north side?
Like right in there?
I just don't think there's enough room there. And there's a slope here, because he built this racetrack, so this slopes down like that. It's substantial, 15, 20 feet. So I don't think it would go there. But that's a good point, because, you know, the way things are set up right now, I could build the barn on this side of the property, you know, with, you know, the way things are set up, but it doesn't make sense for anybody.
So your other property with the new house could have up to about just under 8,500 square feet of accessory building if you were to build it on this property.
Correct. But logistically, it doesn't make sense.
So I got a question for you. So a number of acres you have again, can you just tell me that one more time? The
It's
total?
just under 100 total.
About 100 total, and you got 3 different parcels you say on there?
Correct. When I
So
purchased the property in 18, there was 3 different parcels.
Okay, one was like a 12-acre one was 67. What was the other one then?
It was
13, 12, and 67.
Yeah.
Do you also plan to farm other people's properties?
You know, I'd like to. That's what I'd like to do, but, you know, I'm brand new to this. So, Jade, who's helping me, he's a farmer in Michigan. He had cattle, but I don't plan on doing any of that, but I certainly would like to.
We can't hear you back there.
We've talked about picking up rented land in the future. Once we get started and going, yes, we like to pick up more hay and stuff like that around. Absolutely.
I guess that's part of the reason why, you know, the size, I would, if I built this, I really would not anticipate wanting to add on to it, or if I needed more space, to put it on different spots in the parcels that I have. So I'm trying to look to the future. We're trying to make it as nice as possible, and trying to not, you know, make it so it bothers anybody around the area.
One more question, I guess.
Sure.
So is all your acres all in R1, or what are they all in?
No, actually, that's a good question. Sean, you might speak to that better than I do.
Yeah, I don't remember all the properties that are recommended.
I believe that,
Residential estate for the big one. Plus, it looks like there's still some A1 zoning in there too for some reason, so. The two smaller ones are R1, which does allow farming as a, use. The bigger is R&B and A1. And of course, there's some wetland and environmental corridor on there as well.
Mr. Trustee, on the website, it says that on the large parcel, 67-acre parcel, 44 is taxed as ag and 23 as agricultural forest. That's what you were wanting? I don't have the specifics of the residents. If you want me to, I can go to the residents, but is that what you were wondering?
Yeah, I was just curious where, excuse me, I was just curious where the barn was sitting, or where they're planning the future, the new building, if that was R1 or A, agriculture. I was just kind of curious exactly what that parcel was sitting on.
Anybody else, any comments at this point? Public hearing? Well, come on up. That's what it's for. Well, Mike first, go ahead.
Mike Portrait, West 231, South 5205, Hunters Hollow. Question is, okay, is this going to be considered a commercial/business building? I don't think it's a hobby farm. And if it is, we have two ordinances that state not having any overhead doors facing the road, and also the side of the building facing the road, 50% of that is a brick facade, 25% of the square footage around the two sides is brick facade. So my question is, does this apply to this or not? That's up to.
No. This is an agricultural/residential building, and so those requirements are only for businesses, and so we don't consider agriculture a business in the village. I mean, we don't make them do site plans of operation, so this would not qualify for that, those
Okay,
same rules.
thank you.
It was down for so long. Sandy Hom, West 230, South 3827, Milky Way Road. I think everybody in front of me knows how I feel about farming, and I've already said this morning, or this evening on the first one, that I'm in favor of waivers when there's a need. I just heard the gentleman use the word sense, makes sense 4 times, and this would be ideal and convenient, and I think all of those things are true. I'm 74. I've lived in a village or a town in farm country my entire life, except for a few years in Madison, and I've never seen a farm building look like that. And it reminds me of the house that they wanted to build on Merrill Hills Road, where there was going to be a mother-in-law or in-law's apartment, and you looked at it and no, that was a condo, clearly. And so here again, I look at the building, like was mentioned, the 8 doors. I mean, it just doesn't look anything like a farm building to me. I kind of wonder if maybe it'd be a good DPW building. But anyway, I want to find a reason to accept or to approve the waiver, but it all just seems to be based on convenience and what would make sense for them, and I'm not sure that that's a basis for going ahead and approving a waiver. So I don't know how they get around it. The last guy came back a year later and did resolve it and whatever, and you guys have come up with some suggestions on how he might deal with this. There was also a patio mentioned somewhere in the plans. I don't know if that's
the overhang.
that whole thing is called a patio.
Well, it's a porch. It's got a base.
A porch, okay. Well, in any case, I'm a strong supporter of anybody that's, doing agriculture, but I'm just not sure that this building fits in, and particularly the structure as it's presented. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
The point is that we're looking at a waiver in a R1 zone district where the size building's not allowed. Plain and simple. That's what the ordinance says. There are ways that this could get accomplished. I mean, they could combine the lots and rezone to agriculture and have no issues whatsoever. That's why we have zoning codes and ordinances in place. I mean, I've granted waivers in the past, but not for something that's 5,000 square feet over the limit. That's excessive. It's 4,600 and something over. I'm sorry, 2,000 over, I'm sorry. But that's still excessive. That's another whole building.
It's two in my house.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the issue. I mean, if it was zoned appropriately and there wouldn't be a problem. I said it needs to be zoned appropriately and then move forward with the building.
To clarify the size requirement, the size parcel that it is allows 7,968 square feet of accessory building. Sorry, my mic was off. 7,968 square feet is what's allowed based on the size. With this building, the total square footage on the property will be 12,354. So it is between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet over the limit. That is true. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay.
Again, my name is Russ Chicks. I guess another option would be to tear down the original barn, which to me is kind of a historical, structure, which, to be honest, for Jim would probably be easier to take out the old building and put the new one up and fit and not have to worry about any of the zoning issues. But it just seems to make sense to me that a waiver would be far easier and better for everybody to have the waiver and keep the existing barn that's there.
Anybody else? Sean, I gotta remind, didn't we have something similar to this down the road where you're gonna build a house behind? Is that the reason why this was parceled out?
Yeah,
I mean, if I remember right, because I was on the plan commission.
Yes, we
board then,
split-
and we split that out for a reason.
This was split so he could build a house on this parcel. That's his house right here.
Right,
This one's rented out on the other parcel.
because it was all one parcel at the
So
time.
It was all one parcel.
Actually, when I purchased it, I purchased all three parcels.
Oh, you're right, we changed the
And then
size.
we did a CSM so I could get access to the road with the house right here, which is what they wanted me to do. I
We
did
had
it
to
for their-
widen this to meet the width
Yeah.
requirements.
So when I bought this, there were the three parcels.
That's correct. We changed the boundaries.
So I guess my question is, why are we looking at three parcels when he owns all three of them? Why is what's the real?
We're looking at three parcels only because the claim is that he needs this for ag equipment. He has all this property, he farms these properties. That's part of his rationale as to why it's needed. That's why we're
My
looking
point,
at all
I guess,
three.
though, is like our attorney alluded to is, if you had it all one,
I didn't
if
though.
he separates the parcel and leave them as is, and he builds the building up on that, what's down the road that says that now he can sell that, and it's is it illegal non-conforming at that point?
Well, no, I mean, it got a waiver, so it's, there's some
It's legal,
legality,
but-
there's some legality to
But
it, because,
to Dan's point, though, it doesn't meet the ordinance requirements anymore.
well, it does if you grant a waiver. So
I know, Sean, I guess, and I
that's-
agree with that,
I
but
just want to be clear. I mean, you allow these waivers and you look at the reasons and rationale, and that's what you're supposed to do. And so if you grant the waiver, it becomes legal. If you don't grant the waiver, then it doesn't.
so if these parcels were all combined into one, would that make all this problem go away?
Yeah, but he can't, yes, it would, but he can't combine them with two houses unless he would tear down this existing house here.
Which I don't want to do because there's been somebody there for 50 years.
If they were combined and rezoned back to Ag 1, he could have two houses on the property.
That's why I'm trying to.
Yeah, if one is used for the farm operation, Does this guy work on the farm? I mean, that's the question.
I'm not gonna say he
Also,
doesn't.
why would it have to be, you know, the zoning, I'm not sure the zoning matters. You can farm on R1, just like you can, I mean, I know that happens all over the village. There's a lot of big properties that are farmed that are zoned R1. We looked at one, you know, a few months ago regarding a CSM that was splitting and changing some property. That whole thing was R1 and that was farmed. There's nothing that says you can't farm an R1 property.
I don't think that was your point though, right? If you combine it all, then he keeps both houses and he rezones it.
I'd have to look closely at that language in terms of the second house, because I think it has to be for an accessory use associated with the farm.
Farming isn't the issue on the property. The issue is putting in a building that's too big for what it's zoned and what the ordinance says.
I totally get that. I'm just saying, I don't know if rezoning to A1 is gonna solve the problem.
But I thought agriculture, you can put up any size building you
I
want.
haven't looked at that. You,
If it's zoned A1?
There's a percentage, I think, to it.
Yeah,
yeah, it's still based on a
lots were
percentage,
combined,
right?
it'd be-
I don't think on agriculture it matters.
If the lots were combined, you'd have more than enough land. to
Totally,
build a
totally
building.
agree.
So what if you sectioned off that house, the farmhouse, as a separate parcel? Take it away from the rest of it and then combine the rest into one?
Well, in that case, you would have to rezone it to A1 because you can't have accessory buildings without a principal structure if you parceled off that farmhouse.
So isn't the other house he's building as a principal structure then for the house?
I think you missed. you
Oh, to
said
combine it, parcel it off and combine it.
you
Yes.
section off the farmhouse and then combine everything else is what you meant.
Yes.
Is that what
Yeah,
you're
but
saying?
that potentially could happen.
That would eliminate all of these issues about
Size and.
size and number of
Not
buildings and
quantity,
everything else.
there would still be a quantity issue, but size wouldn't be an issue anymore.
And honestly, I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do. I just thought the most practical way to go about this is for the exclusion. And
Do you know you're dealing with government here? There's no such thing as practicality and
Thank
common
you.
sense?
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, I'm sorry, yeah. I poured over this, and honestly, I think this is the real issue right here is this barn, and I don't want to tear it down. I really don't.
So how would you
I don't know that
feel
the barn
about?
is that big an issue, I guess, as far
Well,
as
it
I'm
takes up the
concerned.
square footage that I can't use it
That's what
for.
I'm trying to get around here by saying it all zoned agriculture. It doesn't matter how many square footage
Right.
of buildings you
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
If you create a 1 acre parcel with this if you create a 1 acre parcel with this existing house, I'm not sure how that would be shaped or where the setbacks would be, but if you did that and then combine the remainder with this other parcel, that would solve the size issue.
I mean, you could put the garage with the house, obviously, and that would eliminate another building.
The waiver you'd be granting in that case, though, is that you're allowing an accessory building to be built closer to the road than the house is. So that would be another waiver you'd be granting for that.
If it's zoned agriculture, it doesn't matter. You can have accessory buildings in front of the residence.
If
it's
you
zoned A.
rezone the whole thing ag, yeah.
Right.
Is that an option? The way we just said it, if we parcel the house out as a separate,
Well, Mr. President, I would recommend that you give the planner a chance to sit down. The petitioner has indicated that he would be willing to look at these
Right.
potentialities, but to try to do that tonight isn't.
No,
fair
I agree
to
with that,
anybody.
yes.
So we could table it if you don't want to make a decision tonight. That's better than for him than a denial, sir, you know. He could deny it, then
Yes,
you'd have
sir.
to start all over.
I mean,
But as a courtesy to him at this stage, you could table it and, the public hearing's closed, so I guess.
well, I haven't really officially closed it yet.
Oh, okay, good point.
We're
So
still
we
in it
could-
yet.
We could adjourn the public hearing
Yeah.
to a time and date certain and then come back to this at another point. I'm just saying then he doesn't have to do another fee and he doesn't, and we can look at whatever they come back with.
And honestly, I was just trying to do whatever is easiest for everybody involved. And I thought this would be, and I think Sean too, we thought the easiest would be this route. And if the board decides not to do that, then
Well, we're just trying to get things legal,
I get
period,
it,
without
I get it.
complicating everything later down the road, like
I
the
get it.
attorney said. You've got a separate parcel with a big building on now. you know, I hate to say this, but none of us live forever. So someday somebody else is gonna own that property, and they're gonna come back here and say, you know, they want something else to do with that now, and it's, well, you can't do that because it's too big a building.
We also always have to look at what we set as precedents. If we start, if we
Yeah.
do it for you, and we sure do enough of that here, so we gotta be cautious that
I
we're fair to
understand.
everybody.
Yeah. Okay, let's,
Just close the
This would
hearing.
be
at this
adjourn
point.
the public hearing to a time and date certain, and then we don't have to renotice it, and we just come back. That, I misspoke when I said table. We can just adjourn the public hearing to, what's our next meeting, Mr. Malarkey?
April 10th, Chris says.
April 10th at 6:30?
Thank you all.
All right.
Somebody want to do that?
You can leave out there.
Okay, we need to make a motion to, first I gotta close the public hearing, is that?
No,
we
I
don't?
want to keep the public hearing
All right,
open.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing until the next joint meeting on April 10th. Second.
At 6:30.
At 6:30 PM. I'll make a recommendation to the village board that we adjourn it and do that.
Okay.
You can adjourn it. It's your.
We can- yeah, we can do
Well,
that
it's
as
a
well.
joint hearing.
I'll go back to the original motion.
Yeah, let's get it right. All right, there's a second. All those in favor on the plan commission? Joel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moving on. Discussion and possible action on a certified, I guess we're not gonna be doing that. Well, let me, only audit story, that's the wrong one. Discussion and possible action on a certified survey map and accessory building waiver request for petitioner Anthony and Andrea Starniello for the property located at South 47 West 23365 Lonsdale Road, tax key WAKT 13979998001 for a proposed two-lot division of the 9.85 acre property and a waiver for quantity and total size of the existing accessory buildings. Mr. Malarkey, you want to review that?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
I covered all my comments during the public hearing, but I think Greg may have a couple of.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. As you know, we always review these CSMs to make sure they meet Wisconsin Administrative Code, State Statute 236, and Village of Waukesha Code of Ordinances specific to CSMs. We have a list of essentially 5 technical comments that need to be addressed before this is can be considered recordable. We can go through those comments. I assume my letter has been sent to the petitioner, but first 2 sheets are labeled the same number. We ask that be corrected. The map references bearings. It needs to be, the basis of those bearings needs to be listed. We ask that a note be added to the CSM regarding the length and bearing of the boundaries of the parcel surveyed. Needs to be noted on the CSM whether the section corners were found or not. The monuments shown that have been set do not meet the length requirements. I believe they were 12 inches where they should be 18. The center line of all streets shall be shown. Most crucially, I think there's some setback distances missing per the village's ordinance that we need shown on the CSM. So we ask that a revised one come to us to ensure that these comments are met.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion, Plan Commission Board?
Can we also add onto there that if any of those buildings are destroyed in any way, that they cannot be rebuilt and that they have to meet the zoning ordinance at that time? And on lot 2, can we make sure that he's aware that we will not grant an exception to go over the square footage of an allowed accessory building if he so desires one?
You mean on the existing buildings?
Correct.
I guess, Sean, you had something to
So
add?
the first question is if one of the accessory buildings is destroyed or is removed on lot 1, you're asking if, you're saying, let's put a stipulation that says that cannot be rebuilt if it's gonna exceed the square footage for accessory buildings. Have to meet the ordinance, essentially. I don't know, I guess my question for Attorney Macy, does that, I mean, these are essentially legal non-conforming structures based on that? Or are they legal based on the waiver granted? And so if they're, you know, how do we prohibit them from rebuilding one if a tornado comes and destroys one of them?
Well, the question is whether that's a reasonable condition on the waiver, correct?
It's a waiver. It'd be a waiver, making them legal if the waiver's granted.
Right, but we can say we want the property, well, first, I think the second one, that he doesn't get any more, is very typical. That's a condition that a lot of communities put on. You can't come back and ask for another waiver and things like that.
Sure.
I mean, they can put a property owner on notice if that was your second point. That's the easier one, I think, if I'm.
Did you mean lot one or lot two? For the second lot, well, he may sell the second lot and it might not even be his, but you're saying let's put a requirement on lot two that whoever owns that in the future can't ask for a waiver.
There and saying I'm gonna put a barn up like is on the other one, it's gonna be way over the square footage it's allowed, so.
Well, then we just deal with that at the time, right?
We can.
Based on its
but
merits of whether or not,
But at least put it in his packet so he's aware that we're not gonna allow a waiver to go bigger.
Well, I think that's, like Chad said, that's already decided that when he comes in for the hearing. If he puts up, his barn blows down, as you said, in a tornado or whatever, I don't see why we would stop him from rebuilding that barn exactly the way it was before. Is that what you're saying, Dan, that once it goes down, he can never build it again?
I'm saying if one of those buildings goes down, that's the point where he's gotta come in compliance with the ordinance. The waiver's only good until that happens.
I guess I'm not following that. I can't.
so
don't know
I
if
guess
go
my
along with
question is,
that or not.
even legal non-conforming uses, even buildings that are over the limit on some property, have that the state protects them in that regard, that even if they're over the limit, they're too big, they don't meet setbacks, if they're legal non-conforming, if they're legal at one time, you can always rebuild them. The state statutes say that if they're destroyed. So this would be even going above and beyond like anything. So
Well, I don't
just,
know that I fully agree with that, but I agree with that legal non-conforming structures.
you can rebuild them.
But these aren't legal non-conforming.
No, these are legal buildings. These would
But
be
he's getting a
legal.
waiver.
Right, and then that makes them legal.
But, yes, but I have a number of communities who say, we understand, is in part, help us out here, is in part, it's because these are alleged to be historical and have a specific value and things like that.
Mhm.
If one of those goes down, you can say, we'll only let you put up additional accessory structures up to the limit unless you get another waiver. That's not an unrealistic, that's a legally enforceable condition.
Yeah, and my concern was that it wouldn't be legal to do that. So if you're saying that's legal to put that restriction on them.
Well, you're granting a waiver. How many square feet, how many, walk us through the numbers so I have a sense of exactly what we're talking about.
So in this case, the new lot one, the reduced size, the new lot one would be 2,998 square feet is the limit, right? So what's on there now is 4,740. So he's over the limit by 1,700 or 1,800 square feet.
Yeah, I don't think that's an unreasonable request that if one of the existing buildings is either voluntarily torn down or
Destroyed by,
destroyed,
yeah.
or not maintained or whatever, that he has to get a waiver to put it back up. He's getting a waiver to create this lot. I think the compromise is he doesn't have the automatic right to replace them unless it's within the code.
You're saying a waiver, Dan, were you saying a waiver, just he can't rebuild it unless it's legal and meets the code?
But I don't know that we can take away his right to apply for a new waiver. He just doesn't have the automatic right to keep them until he comes within size limits.
Well, then what?
2981.
Yeah, so then for lot two, we're saying have a clause that says you never can apply for a waiver for accessory buildings on lot two.
Yeah, that one I have much more of a trouble with.
Okay.
Because I think that should be, those people, whoever buys lot two and wants to develop it should have the right to come in and ask. you can say, we already got too much next door, and when you created it, you know, we knew that, but I don't know that we should take away, I can't recommend that that would be a legally enforceable condition.
Okay, so the condition that I have essentially is that if a building is destroyed or removed, it cannot be rebuilt unless, what?
Well, it results, what they ask for doesn't exceed the 2981 or whatever he said, 29 something, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Or whatever limit is at the time.
Is allowed at that
At the time, yeah.
without a waiver.
Okay, without a waiver.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Just writing this down here quick. Excuse me. I'll make a motion to recommend to the board that we approve the accessory building waiver for Lot 1 and the CSM as noted in the staff recommendation within the packet, to include a stipulation that if one or more of the accessory buildings were to come down regardless of the reason, the owner will have to seek approval for new building construction if any of it goes above the limits for that zone,
By
for that
waiver.
property.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second to that from the Plan Commission?
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded.
Just to clarify, I guess, discussion-wise, there's nothing speaking to limit, or Lot 2's concerns that Dan had.
Okay, just for clarification purposes, Sean, can you repeat what he just said?
Well, I can repeat it, I wrote it down.
Okay, you repeat it then.
Sure. The motion to recommend to the board is to approve the building waiver and CSM that are within the staff's recommendation in the packet. And that there's a stipulation that if one or more accessory buildings come down regardless of the reason, the owner will have to seek approval through a waiver if any of the new construction goes above the limits for that property.
All right, is there a second? No, we already have the second, I'm sorry.
I have to ask one question.
Go
Do
ahead.
you want this as a deed restriction? Otherwise, who's gonna remember it?
Is that what we normally would do?
I just don't, yeah.
Yeah, I think we do.
Shaking his head,
Yeah.
All right, so do I need to make an amendment to my motion?
But
Or just-
you can say it's a friendly amendment if the second agrees with it.
And then, I had another note here, I didn't say, I guess, when I first did this, but with the engineer's comments as far as those things, those are just automatic, correct? Like, they won't gets approved without your.
Correct.
So I don't need to add that to the motion.
I don't believe
I
so.
hope that's in Sean's motion.
Yeah, and my comments basically say they have to meet
What,
all
the engineers?
staffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a friendly amendment to include that it has a deed restriction with that attached.
Joe, do you agree with that?
I'll second his friendly.
Okay.
Do I need to
All
repeat
right.
it again, Chris? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All those in favor of what we just discussed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Village Board?
And then I'll make a motion to approve my previous motion that was just approved.
Well, that's a lot easier than the first time you did.
I like that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded to approve the motion that he made the first time.
Is it legal to make your
All
own
those-
motion?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion?
Carries. That was interesting.
Is it legal to make a motion on your own motion?
Yep, it's two hats he's wearing. John, do we just skip number 10 then with the Britons? Or do we have to make any action?
Sure, I mean, you can make a motion to table it too.
I'll make a motion to table number 10
All right.
until the next meeting.
Second.
Plan Commission, it's been moved and seconded, table 10, accessory building for James Britton. Village Plan Commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Village Board,
I'll make a recommendation to accept the planning commissions.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Number 11, discussion and possible action on a site plan of operation request for petitioner Diane Zagorowski for the property located at West 273, South 6201, River Road, tax key WAKT 14209970004 for a horse boarding stable and equestrian facility. I apologize if I killed your name. But, Sean?
Yeah, so we've talked about this in the past, and back in July 2023, we amended the ordinance, the zoning ordinance, to allow horse boarding stables and equestrian facilities as a permitted use in the A1 district with a series of conditions that went along with it. And so the petitioner is proposing a horse boarding stable and equestrian facility on this 52-plus acre property. Property is zoned A1. It's got some conservancy zoning, some environmental corridor zoning, and then floodplain zoning as well. So they have submitted a site plan of operation, a map, and a narrative that goes along with it. And this is probably a little bit hard to read up there, but what's going on at the property, there's an existing single-family residence, which is here. There's farmland on the property. As I mentioned, there's wetlands, environmental corridor, floodplains, particularly adjacent to the Fox River. There's an existing larger barn here that includes an indoor riding arena. There's a smaller connected barn that has horse stalls, storage, tack rooms, a lounge, and then also a newly installed ADA compliant restroom that is a requirement of the equestrian facilities. There's the septic area for that shown to the northwest here. There's also a newer building that was built fairly recently, a shed that for hay and ag use. There's also a shed for an existing well pump on the property here. There are multiple fenced dry lots, paddocks, and pastures, including some portable shelters, both existing, zoom out, and proposed. There's a number of fenced-in fields for horses on the property. There is a new manure storage system that's on the property here. Along with that is a manure management plan. That is also a requirement of the ordinance. There is a 45 by 100 foot gravel parking area for visitors and boarders. There's also a couple of smaller gravel parking areas noted on the plan as well. There's some overflow parking area here, this 100 foot by 140 foot area that's gonna be for trailer storage, some overflow parking storage, and then storage of agricultural equipment and supplies as well. And then there's also a grassed area that would be even more overflow parking if needed. There's also portable sanitary facility locations that are hidden behind the existing barn here. There's a 10 foot by 20 foot area there for special events if and when needed. And then finally, there is a future outdoor riding arena. There will be no bleachers or lighting or PA system that's associated with that. Essentially, it's just a fenced area to ride horses. So that's essentially the site plan. In terms of the plan of operation, they're looking at a maximum of 10 employees, maximum of 20 total horses owned and boarded on the site at any one time. Special events may have an additional 20 horses on site at any one time. Hours of operation for daily activities would be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. The care of animals would not be limited to those hours. And then special events would be 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for special events. Those events would be horse-related only, would be no rodeos, limited to 8 per year, 2 days per event. Number of attendees for special events would be a maximum of 40, not including the owners of the property, the horse boarders, or employees. For portable sanitary facilities, there'd be 1 per 20 people attending. That'll be provided. At least 1 will be ADA accessible. And those numbers, based on my research, are essentially what's recommended by professionals in the industry for a number provided per people. Some of the requirements of the site plan of operation is also there has to be an employee that has to reside on site. Again, there is a single-family home. The person that lives there will be an animal caretaker. So when the owners are not around, there will be someone there to take care of animals. Contiguous area has to be 15 acres. The property is 52 acres in size. The property itself, based on size and the rules, would allow up to 50 horses. Again, only 20 horses will be boarded and only 20 additional animals will be on site as part of special events. Up to 10 horse trailers may be parked on the property at any one time, and those would be, again, in this area that's designated as such. No screening is proposed at this time for this, but that is about 200 feet back from the right-of-way. All the existing barns are located at least 50 feet from property lines, which is required. Any portable shelters would also have to be at least 50 feet back from the right-of-way as well. They are proposing a perimeter fencing 1 foot inside the property line, as well as fencing around each dry lot, pasture, or paddock. The building inspector is going to essentially review the barns prior to occupancy and make any recommendations, and that is a condition of my approval, that has to happen prior to occupancy. We talked about the commercial restroom, portable facilities. No stormwater management or erosion control is needed because the total new impervious surface area is less than 1/2 acre in size. There isn't going to be any amplified sound systems. No outdoor refuse containers will be stored. They do have a manure management plan that it was prepared in coordination with Waukesha County. One of the conditions is going to be they'll be responsible for any cleanup of manure and mud resulting from the operation on the adjacent roadway. No signage proposed at this time and no lighting proposed at this time. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, I don't know. Greg, have you got anything to add to this, or?
I have nothing to add. Like Sean said, there's no need for stormwater erosion control. There's no increase of impervious surface. There's no land disturbing activity, correct, Sean, or is it?
There's no grading, there's just some new graveled areas, but they don't exceed 1/2 acre.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to what Sean already said.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Sure. I guess to start with, this is A1, so we touched on this in the open hearing earlier, but square footage of all the extra buildings, we're good there?
Those buildings already exist, so there's nothing new, no buildings being proposed, except for the manure storage building, and that wouldn't put us over any limit for a 52.
Well, the reason I ask is because this has been sitting as an open compliance issue, that our extension with this board was over on September 22nd, and I don't know where we're at status-wise with all of that, so I don't think we should be moving forward with approving new things on the property if we haven't even gotten the complaint stuff taken care of.
What compliance stuff are you referring to? There was a shed that they were building here that's been complete and has been given occupancy, as far as I understand. That was one of the issues.
I guess I'd have to go back. I'm looking at last month, or at the last board meetings, clerk's report, and it looks like March 28th is when a motion was made of last year to approve Diane's letter for a 6-month extension to bring the property into compliance which put it till September 22nd. I don't have the original.
This was part of the compliance, though, was getting their site plan of operation. So I think there was some questions originally, or someone raised questions about the shed and whether that had permits, and we talked to the building inspector about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jared had gone through all of this
Yeah,
and
he
approved everything,
Yeah,
that they
that's
were in compliance.
all been approved, the bathroom's been approved, that's in compliance, and
This
so,
whole site plan is all part of that.
That was my
issues that were
understanding.
brought up, and this site plan brings the complete, the lavatory, or what do you wanna call it, was part of it, the septic system, the manure management plan was part of it, and that's all been taken care of as far as I'm.
that was my understanding as well.
Talking
This was the last piece.
Yeah, this was kind of the final.
And so all buildings on the property have been properly permitted now?
All
And
buildings
approved by
have
the
been
building
properly
inspector?
permitted. The only thing remaining is for the building inspector to inspect the barns to be used as part of the operation, to make sure that they're commercially compliant with, exit signs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
I just have one minor comment, but the existing dry storage lots, you have 7, and the way it's labeled or drawn on the plan, there's 7 in a row, and you actually have 6 in a row. The 7th one is actually behind the 6th lot, dry stall. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not following. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
seven
6,
across the
7.
front.
Yeah, these 7 across the front, what's the question?
The one, actually, there's not 7, there's actually 6 in the front. The 7th one is actually behind the 6th one, if I recall when I drove by. There's not 6, there's one actually sitting behind.
I can't answer that, but maybe
I'm
the
just saying maybe
petitioner
the
would be able to, yeah.
I'm just saying it's a minor thing, but a drawing shows different.
I drove by the other day and I saw the same.
But this also is the proposed, this is not just what's existing, this is existing and proposed, so there might be changes as part of the proposed.
Okay.
Because
Anybody else?
all these paddocks and pastures don't all exist now either. Some of them do in different configurations, but this is all a new configuration.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I have some things to discuss yet, too.
Okay, we can have a motion on the floor and discuss.
Subject to the planner's conditions, if there are.
We can have a second and then discuss.
I'll second it, and then we'll discuss.
Okay.
Similar to what we did over on Point Drive, I think that parking lot on top still needs to have some screening, some vegetation, especially from the south direction, from the Point Drive side and coming up the road that way. That's all visible up there on the hill. If we're gonna park trailers up there and store them up there, I think they need to be screened. The other question I have is the fence that's going along. It shows it going all the way down along in front of the house and all the way down to the intersection just about. Is the fence in front of the house gonna be a wire fence like it is along the rest of the property, or is it gonna be a decorative fence, or we can require that? I said, I don't think it's appropriate to have the wire fence going all the way across in front of the house and stuff. I think that's, if it's gonna be a fence in front of the house, it should be a decorative fence.
You mean a chain link fence?
No, they have a wire fence on the rest
I
of
see.
up where the paddocks are and stuff. It's a wire fence all along the road. If that's going to extend down past the house, I think that should be a decorative fence, not a wire fence. Something like a board fence or a split rail fence or something.
Can I speak on this?
Just hang on a second.
Yeah.
You done, Dan, or you got something else yet, or you want to address, or?
The only other thing is like where they show the new riding area out there in front, proposed right there. Right now, there's a lean-to shelter sitting in there. Is that going to be gotten rid of or removed?
Yep. It's gonna
You
be
have to get
gone.
his name and address.
Yeah. W273S6201 River Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, 53186. John Michael Zakcheski. For the fencing, for the perimeter fence, the purpose of us doing that was for a safety thing, to have adequate fencing around the entire property. So we are turning all the fencing that's currently wire into a polyblend rope electric fence. It's not for the purpose of being pretty for a house, it's for the purpose of safety of keeping animals inside the perimeter. So that's kind of why we have it on there. We don't plan to do that fence maybe even this year. It's more of just putting it on the site plan so we don't have to come back if we want to put that up in the future for safety.
I would think the electric fence would go up and around the back side of the house though, rather than across in front of it, but that's just my opinion. I think it should be a decorative fence along the road in front of the house. I don't think that should be a electric wire fence or electric
So you're saying
poly
something like
fence.
a white vinyl plank type?
Yeah, something like that, or a split rail or something, but I would think the safety fence would go up around behind the house rather than in front of it, but.
Well, it's already split railed to the north of the driveway still, right? Or did you take that down?
So all of the area that's existing dry lots, all that is gonna be a split rail metal continuous fence. So that front entire area.
Google Maps right now looks like some wood next to that too, going towards the driveway. Is that still there?
Yeah, it's just holding up gates right now. Where it is now, it's all been ripped out except for what's holding up the gates.
Does our codes or our ordinances dictate what kind of fence?
I know, that's a question for the planner.
I don't review fences, it doesn't require a permit. It doesn't require a zoning permit. If it requires a building permit, I don't see it.
I thought we did have ordinances regarding fences.
Nobody has ever applied for a fence permit, from me anyways.
Just height.
I could see that in residential, I don't know.
Right, we do have requirements for fences, obviously, but we don't review them.
Okay, could I have the petitioner explain what's currently there? Let's start with that, please.
Yeah. So currently,
Here, I'll bring the overhead, aerial photograph up.
That's better.
can I come over here and talk and point? All right, so currently what we have here is we have a wooden fence.
John, there's a laser by that, so you can.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Said it didn't work.
If it turned on the left side, it should be on it, working when I put it up there.
There we go. So right here, we have a wooden fence. I'm too shaky for this. So we have a wooden fence right here. That's holding up 2 gates here and 2 gates here. Then on this other side here, we have metal fencing that continues all the way down to right here, which is going to be the end of our 7th paddock here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this paddock was split into 2 because this was too close to the road, being within 50 feet by 3 feet, so we got rid of that shed. So this shed is no longer here. So this here, we have individual movable sheds, and this pen, this pen, this pen, this pen, this pen, and then this pen.
Are what? Are what? Sorry.
What was that?
What are they made of? The ones?
They are wood on below and then metal on top. Like a standard Vulcan shed. I don't know.
I mean, as long as you all know what that means, he didn't clarify. You
It's
said,
the exact same shed that's right here.
no, I'm talking
The
about
fence,
the
the
fence.
fence
You said
material.
fence.
So all this fence here is metal fencing, and that's the continuous fencing is the name of it.
Is that the same fence that you pointed along all the
Yep,
way along
so
this?
this is all, right here is all continuous fencing, the metal fencing.
And it's the same fencing that divides the paddocks I think paddocks.
Yes.
I just want to get what there is, then find out what the concern is and try to resolve the issue for tonight. That's what exists now?
That's what exists right here on this screen now. So the wood fence is right here. That's the only wood fence that's on the property. And it's holding up the gates. And we had frozen ground and couldn't put in new posts for the new fencing.
Is that wooden fence going to be, okay, so that's what exists now?
Correct, on this area of the picture, yes.
Do we need to see elsewhere, or are you just concerned about this area of the picture, gentlemen?
Well, he's concerned about the house and in front of the house.
Well, I want to get to the proposed, Sean. I want to get what's there now, and that the issue is the proposed, I think, right?
Correct.
So the next step would be what's proposed in this plan, if we may. All right, is anybody concerned about any of the other fencing on the parcel, or just along this area that's seen along the road? Is that what we're talking about? Okay, so now tell us what's proposed in this area.
So we put proposed of the fencing limits per the language that is in the permitted use, saying that on our site plan, we should have the fencing limits noted. So for the future, we would like to have the ability to put a perimeter fence all the way around that's adequate fencing. It just says adequate fencing in the language, so I didn't know that we had to have decorative fencing for horses. But if that's the case, we can have the safety, actual fencing for animals behind the house. We just don't want to be limited to what we have now for fencing in the future if we do need to put up more fencing.
I understand. When is your contemplated construction of the additional new fencing?
So
years, months?
We have some fencing that is drawn on the site plan that will be done this year. So everything that's done paddock-wise and pasture-wise will be done this year. The fencing limit for the perimeter, so this is currently done now. This fencing is currently done. This line, all the way, this all here, is all currently up. So this fencing line here is not up, and then these fencing lines here are not up yet. but those will be done this year.
And they'll match the existing fencing?
No, so all of this fencing out in the pasture and paddock areas is gonna be a poly blend electric rope fencing.
Replacing what's there?
It's currently wire,
Okay.
metal wire, and we're going to a poly blend electric rope fencing. It's the same exact fencing that is being used on the property to this way. It's the same exact fencing that's used by Wild Wind and the other way.
Has everybody got the concept?
Yep.
And so, does anybody have any problem with that proposed fencing? Okay, so now we're down to the perimeter fencing, correct? That might be in front of the house. When do you contemplate might be wanting to do the perimeter fencing?
Your guess is as good as mine. I would like to not do it at all, but if we need it in the future for any reason or feel the need to put it up, we would want to have the ability to.
And that certainly makes sense. I mean, we're trying to, you did the right thing. Now it's run into the rub, though, that people may not, they want more detail or they want, something different in front of the house, just to summarize. And I'm trying to figure out how we get there. Do we want a more detailed fencing plan at the time?
I'm looking at the ordinance, it's 4234 for general use, and the fences is sub 3 of it. I don't know that we have the ability, do we, to be dictating it to that extent, because the A1's talking about residentially zoned property, which this isn't.
This is a conditional, I'll cut to the quick,
Okay.
this is a conditional use and.
Well,
this
not a
is
conditional use, just a site plan, a permitted use with site plan of operation requirements.
The property doesn't have a conditional use?
No.
Okay, so it's still a site plan and plan of operation, the question is whether it's a reasonable condition. The mere fact that we have all kinds of things, we don't regulate hours, but we still say, you can only have so many trailers, you can only have so many of special events, that's all carved out as part of reasonable conditions of a site plan and plan of operation. I just wanna tell you the real question is it reasonable to dictate? And I think when you have this much fencing and this type of operation, I certainly think it's reasonable. If you had a subdivision across the street, I think, which I don't believe we do.
No, it's just-
If we did, I'm sure we would have possibly even people in here saying we'd like to see split rail fence and painted or plastic, or we don't have that, nobody's saying that, they're just saying, we want, if I hear Dan correctly, we want more detail and we would like to see something different. He's not proposing to go ahead with it right away. I'll ask Mr. Malarkey, is there any way we can just bring back a detailed perimeter fencing plan without him having to go through the whole paying a fee and everything?
We could, or we could just say for some distance in front of the house, it's gotta be something better.
Well, he's suggesting he may not even put anything. in
And
front of his house.
if he does fencing at all, it's gotta be a higher quality fence in front of the house for a distance of how many feet? A couple hundred feet or something.
I
Well,
can make it simple. I won't even request for the fencing in front of the house. We'll do our perimeter and we'll.
go around the
around
house? Okay, so I can put a note in the.
So
in the
that would be a
conditions.
condition of approval, a modified site plan and plan of operation showing no perimeter fencing in front of the house. That's simple. Thank you for so now you wanna add some, screening of the trailers, if I was hearing you correctly?
Yeah, I'm just, quick getting that last note. Oh, yeah, gotcha. Do you want to see topography?
You've got an aerial photo of the whole place?
If you're coming from the south and north, do they plan on this trailer storage up there at the top?
Up here,
of the
yeah.
house? Yeah, that's all visible very much from the Point Drive River Road intersection.
Yeah, there's a high spot right there, right?
Yeah, and that's all very visible. I think that should be screened for trailer storage.
Screen from the south. So let's look back at the site plan again.
I think from like the house direction right in front of it, it's pretty much screened because you got that building.
So-
I think it's behind the building.
Let me just, I just want to get a sense of where the high point is, and I think, if I turn the topo back on, The high point is just, here's the house, so it's just west of the house is where that high point is. So if you look at this, the high point is actually right here. So this is on the back side of that, the downslope of that hill.
And that's agricultural equipment, we don't have to screen that. So we can leave that there if we,
We certainly, and the site plan of operation does say we can require landscaping of any, especially the trailer parking. So what there's, I mean, and so if you're gonna park the trailers, I don't know if you have a plan on where the trailers are gonna go, if they're gonna go in the front or they're gonna go on the side. But what Commissioner Nowak, Buckles is saying is that, he'd like to see some type of screening.
yep, let's do it. We'll put up trees, we'll screen. Not a problem.
So wherever the trailers are going to be parked, they have to have screening from the south.
Okay, so the condition would be subject to a detailed plan for the location of the trailers and screening of the same to the satisfaction of the village planner. Are people comfortable with that? That's what we oftentimes do.
Yeah, if you're comfortable, otherwise we can bring it back.
Well, it's Victoria's motion. Would you agree to add that?
And the modification to the site plan showing the perimeter fencing behind the house. That was the two additional conditions.
Correct.
Anything else, Mr. President?
Nope, I don't think so. We have a motion on the floor to approve the site plan of operation with, I assume now with the conditions that were mentioned?
To be approved by the planner.
Yes.
And the conditions in the report. Any other conditions in the planner's report? Correct?
Yes.
I just always got to make sure that gets into the minutes.
Okay, we'll take a vote from the Plan Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Village Board?
I'll move to accept the recommendation of the planning commission to approve the site plan of operation with the additions.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor on the board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Moving on, adjournment of the Plan Commission. I will move to adjourn. Moved and seconded to adjourn the Plan Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Gentlemen, lady, you are adjourned. Do you need a break? Anybody? Nothing? You guys want to go on? Keep going. Discussion and possible action. Letter of credit reduction for Pebblebrook Hollow subdivision, Phase 1.
Yes.
Greg, I believe you take that?
That's me. So we received a request from David Bellman for Phase 1 of the Pebblebrook Hollow subdivision. He essentially is requesting to reduce the letter of credit to the work that he has remaining, which is just at this point paving of the surface course. So what he is requesting that letter of credit be reduced to is the value of the surface course of asphalt plus the 20% contingency just for that item remaining, to a value of $97,951.78. This is the second letter of credit. We'd previously reduced it during construction to the point that it's at now of $346,385.75. I approve of what Mr. Bellman's requesting.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the reduction of, as presented by the engineer.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to accept the letter of credit reduction for Pebblebrook Hollow subdivision Phase 1. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Award bid for 2025 road program. I believe you have that too, right?
Yes, sir. So we opened bids yesterday morning for the road program. 3 bids were received from I guess exactly who you'd expect to receive bids from the three major paving contractors in the area, Stark, Payne and Dolan, and Wolf. If you remember, I had estimated a base bid price for the roads that we're doing this year, right around $1 million. So we received bids yesterday that were very competitive with one another, all right around $870,000, $880,000. The low base bid amount being Stark at $866,977.60. That amount being pretty substantially lower than the million or so we had budgeted for the road program, allows the village some flexibility in looking at the 4 roads we set aside for mandatory alternates. So what I'm recommending, based on the cost that came in, is awarding the base bid plus mandatory alternate B, which is, make sure I get my roads right. That's Stonehenge Drive, plus mandatory alternate C, which is Wheelan Drive, for a total amount awarded of $994,346.10. So still under $1 million to do each of those roads.
Okay. That it?
That's it from,
Yep.
as far as my recommendation,
I think
yes.
those alternate ones are ones we kind of foo-fooed last time, didn't we, last year or something? They got put back.
Yeah, they're all kind of in the same range of quality, and so, like we talked about, getting the bids out as early as we did this year definitely impacted the total cost, so it gives a lot of flexibility to get as many roads done for the budgeted amount as possible, which I think we can do this year.
Best bang for the buck, as they say.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Any comments?
I think you did a great job getting them out early. I think you saved us some butts.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to approve the bid for Stark Pavement for the base bid plus adding on the alternates of B and C, B Boy, C Charles.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Rukert and Milky Engineering quote for specifications and bidding documents for a DPW building. I believe that's in the packet. I'm gonna make a motion to deny, and I will do some other research and see what we can come up with something cheaper. Is there a second?
I'll second, but I have comments.
Okay, go ahead.
While we're doing so, I like, if we're gonna go through the DBW building the way we're going at this point, have it redrawn up, I like to make, I'll put it in a motion too, that we actually add on a drawing of the fire department, the remodel part of it, because I still have some concerns of the concept that we had from the last architect, and just to make sure everything works down the road. That's all I'm asking, and I think we should do them both at the same time to understand where the building should sit on its property eventually, and make sure that the conceptual plan of the fire department works as needed for the fire department. So I'm just asking that we keep going forward. I don't want to stop any project. Trust me, I'm not going there. But I think we should have both drawings set so we know where we're headed and get a dollar amount on both issues before we go. I mean, if we're going to have somebody else look at them.
Unfortunately, that's not on the agenda. Can't
This
act
is
on
only
that
for a
tonight.
DBW
You
building.
can ask that that be placed on the next meeting agenda, and that's certainly appropriate.
Yeah, and
We can't,
yeah,
I understand that's an appropriate comment. And
Yeah, that's what I meant. It was a comment I wanted to make, and just as you guys are aware where I'm kind of standing or whatever, but, you know, I'll see if we can put that on the agenda for next meeting, but I think for the overall view and, of the village here and what we're trying to get these projects accomplished, and we definitely got to get them done. There's no doubt. But I just don't want to, move forward, and I just want to make sure everything's in the right place before we go forward.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that we're leaving the fire department behind on this. This is to get the DBW building moving forward now. So that's why this is, I will do a little bit of research and homework and see what we come up with the building quote for the engineering part of it. Talk to a contractor or something, so, to move that forward. But this is $100,000 and some, I think, is more than what we can swing as far as making it necessary to do.
Bob, I'll point out, I guess, looking at who we just ended the contract with for the first phase of this whole overall project, that's in line with what their initial contract with us was for cost of these next steps, is about 6% of what the overall project is.
But I think that if we talk to a builder, because we've kind of agreed to go with a pole barn type building, correct? That's what we've designed or decided on versus the one that Mike brought in. I think if we talk to a builder, they can put the specs together themselves at a much less cost, and not cost at all, basically, and get the job done that way, without having to go through that. I'm not saying it's not out of line with what you said as far as what our first.
So you want a note of, you want to go through this process so that you've got a comparison, because right now it's one and done with Brookert and Milky, and you want to be able to make a comparison and look at the things and take the two bids and compare them.
I think we can talk to the builders and see if we can get them to the plan. I'd like to try that, I guess, and I think they'll do that in-house, and if they're gonna build it, they'll have the plans already done.
John,
I think it's an extra step that we don't need to do.
when we talked about this previously, though, if we do that, that builder potentially can't bid on it then, correct? Because
Depends on how they write it. So let's just go back a step. I have recommended to all my clients, and I, would stand by that recommendation, that it's very risky to have Wick or Clancy or Mortensen put together their engineered building with specs and put it out to bid. Because you might get criticism, and I have seen the criticism from the other builders saying that it's proprietary, and that no one else can bid on it because they made it this 1 foot shorter or something, that only their building meets the specs. And I think what the president is saying, I'm gonna at least find out if one or more of them would do that with one in such a way that it will make it legal before spending the $100,000. I don't wanna put words in his mouth, but he wants to at least go investigate. We already know that that's been investigated. I'm the one that's standing in the way, and I'm still gonna stay with that recommendation. But can it legally be done? Sure. They could put it together so that all three of them are on 3 or 4 of the major companies, or even the independents, on a fair bidding. And we will find out very quickly, if you put this out to bid, if anybody thinks the specs are not legal, because they object, okay? But I think before he wants to spend the $100,000, he wants to see if somebody can do it. That they understand what the rules are. It's just whether they follow the rules or not. And I would be lying to you to say that other municipalities haven't done it that way. I mean, I just say that. Yeah, because it's not illegal. It's just a lot of times doesn't work. Is that fair enough?
Yep.
Well, I think a lot of times that, they get state approvals for these plans, and I think that's why we went with architect, because there's a lot of hoops that we have to go through to make this thing go through. So they get a state of approvals, and I'm not sure these other, I can't speak for them, but if they'll go through that process of getting all that other stuff done for us down the road. But there's a lot of hoops that have to go through on this, and that's not my comment.
No, Trustee White, I absolutely agree with you, but think about it. We're stuck because we're subject to the public bidding law. If you go and build a building and just pick the company, they still have to get state-approved building plans. I mean, that's just a given, and so, yeah, anybody who bids on it, it's with the understanding it has to be state-approved building plans.
I think these
But
people know what the laws are.
government's got
and they're
this,
gonna do it.
this silly rule that, you know, it's gotta be subject to the public bidding. And we've tried to get, well, we all know that that's the law and that's what we have to do. And the president might come back and say, I talked to 4 companies and nobody can do it. Let's go back to, you know, the village engineer's proposal. He's just asking, if I heard him, he's saying, I'm asking for the opportunity to go check this out.
Yeah, I know it's not gonna delay the whole process that much. What's gonna delay this building is once we get a builder and they decide they can't get the material, or they've got work delays, they got another building first, that's what's gonna delay the building. This kind of thing is not gonna slow down the building if you wait a month. What's gonna slow down the building is the builder that we pick to do the work, and what his time frame is, and material access, and that kind of, that's what takes time on putting up a building. But I just think we maybe can come up with another option here than $110,000 for that service. And as John had just mentioned, if this doesn't work out, that I can't get somebody to do that, you know, you can always go spend $110,000. There's always somebody gonna out there wanna take it. If this doesn't happen, you can do that next month if you so desire, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay, we want to be clear for me personally, is we want to eliminate that $104,000 and just have the builder that would take on this responsibility to do that as a part of the overall and not add, and not go out and.
They're doing
go
it gratis.
110,000.
They're doing it in hopes that to get the bid.
Free, okay.
It's a service they all offer, basically. If you talk to them, they will give you the same service.
Makes sense to me.
And I make it very clear, I don't recommend it, I don't like having you go this way, but this is what the village president wants to try, and it can be legal. That's all I can say.
I just got a couple questions, I guess, to add on to that. There's so many hoops that we have to go through, and I know if we just go out and get a bid for the building, that's gonna be X dollars, okay? But there's still utilities.
No, this is not a bid, it's not a bid for a building.
I know, I mean, I'm just saying it's not gonna be the final cost, is what I'm gonna say, but I'm agree, we need to get a bid out there so we know where we're standing, but I just wanna let everybody know there's a lot more additional fees gonna be added to that building.
Well, not according to the plans we got out there. The building included all that electrical and all that stuff already. That'll be part of the bid process. I mean, the one that Mike put together has got all that stuff included in it, concrete work, everything. You know, site preparation's not, obviously, that never is, but.
I agree and disagree, I guess, with that, and all depends what that building goes.
Well, that's what we'd find out when we did the building, if we ask somebody what they're gonna include. If they say they're not gonna put electrical in, and then that's part of the bid process that we'd have to take into consideration when that time comes.
I'm just saying, if they put a building, you know, we got probably a couple different options out there, it all depends where that building goes. If they gotta run 50 feet of X amount of utilities for one building, or 300 feet, I guarantee that price is gonna be different.
All along, the motion was, this is not including site preparation. This was to get a bid for a building to see if you were gonna proceed, and then you'd have to do a separate RFP for the site preparation. There's no doubt about that. And there's, I'm sorry, Greg, just let me finish my thought.
No, go ahead.
You could also go to Wick and Clancy and Morton, and have them put together whatever, and then hire Greg's company, the village engineer, to compile them, and it might be a substantially less cost, because they've already done it, the buildings are engineered and things like that. I mean, he's got everything in there, because that's what you asked for, and you wanna see if you could at least cut some of that out. That might be the compromise, that they still have to do it, you know, they have to still put the bids out and still monitor it, but they don't have to do all that work. So, I'm sorry, I'll do that.
Go ahead, Greg.
Sure. So John's right. Our proposal includes everything: site prep, utilities, electrical, structural, mechanical, plumbing, everything that goes into a building. Our building services group, they do these types of buildings, you know, they've done dozens of them, similar pre-engineered metal buildings, including the site prep. I know that what was asked for initially was intended not to include the site prep, that was going to be done separately. They chose to include that in here. Some of their design, as far as structural, as far as footing design, is based off of specific site data and parameters. Soil bearing capacity, elevation, everything's based off of a finished floor elevation. You need to know where the building's gonna go onto the site to develop those structural plans. That was the reasoning they gave for including all this. I'll admit, as I go through this, I see some things that the village likely does not need. And that was done with the intent of knowing that when you establish a contract like this, it's much easier to take things out than it is to add things in as we go through the process, the design process. What I look at, the end price here of over $100,000, I don't think that needs to be what the village pays. I think a scoping meeting is needed if you choose to go forward with us, which you don't have to figure out which of these things, and they're listing everything. Every step in their experience and our experience as a building services provider goes into these types of projects. Doesn't mean that every single one of them is needed by the village. Could take out some things and they itemize the costs at the end for what each of those areas of the project would cost. And so, I don't think it was necessarily intended to be an a la carte kind of thing, but I think we could work with you if the cost is, is high. Not saying don't go and see what a builder can provide. I have my own questions about that, but I think the intent was to include everything that we typically provide for these projects, knowing that things can be removed, and it's much easier to do that than to add things in if you find out that they're needed later.
And I guess I appreciate that. I guess, this came up, I don't know how much time you had to work with this.
Yeah,
And I
less
know
than,
it's
less
been
than
a-
2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I understand. That's where
Yeah.
I'm headed. So, I know there's a general thing that you guys brought up here, and so I don't know if they can reconsider rescoping, and reducing the dollar amount that's on there, that's fine. Maybe that's, Mr. President will look into that or whatever, but for having 2 weeks to do what you had to do, you were under the gun, I'll tell you that. So.
Okay. Anything else? It's been so long here, I can't remember. Did I get a second?
You
for
made
that?
a motion, it's been seconded.
It has
and
been
that's just
seconded to
discussion.
deny.
I'll second it, yep, to deny the quote.
Okay. I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Still carries. I will try to get as many quotes as I can, and if that doesn't work, we can deny those and go back to this one if you'd like, but at this point, I think we need to explore that, so. Moving on, intermunicipal agreement between the city of New Berlin and the village of Waukesha regarding improvement of Springdale Road. Chris, you've been discussing that with them? I believe that's in the packet, it's, right? Yep.
Yes, it's just the city asking to have something signed to show that we will uphold our end of the agreement and what the cost will be for our section of Springdale, and they're counting it from the railroad tracks that used to be there north to the town of Brookfield line.
Okay.
There's also lays out maintenance, snow and shoulder maintenance and stuff, and it uses the same parameters.
That's pretty much what we've been doing with them, it's just that they wanted it in writing with the redoing the road, so.
Yeah, and if I may, this also covers the construction, not just long-term maintenance, but the construction
Right.
costs. Yeah.
Right, yep. I will make a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement between the city of New Berlin and the village of Waukesha regarding improvement of Springdale Road. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Question I have is whether you need legal review. I've not reviewed it, and it seems like it's much more than a simple agreement. You know?
Yeah, that was one of my questions, and then second, it says, page 3 with B with the project costs shared. It says 1/2 of the cost. Is that the overall Springdale project, or is that just the portions that the village is?
It's
like
the
half owner
overall Springdale project from Cleveland to Greenfield. The village would be covering 50% of the costs.
And do we have 50% of that entire stretch?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And that was built into the road budget for that rough, $250 or so thousand.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning it that way. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that
Yep.
if that whole stretch is half ours and half theirs, that we're getting equal cost that way.
All right, we have a motion.
Are you gonna add legal review or no?
That's, yeah, I guess I will add legal review to that motion.
Sure.
Second, Stu, you want to agree to that?
I'll accept that, yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll repeat it. Intermunicipal agreement between the city of New Berlin and the village of Waukesha regarding improvement of Springdale Road. Subject to attorney review. Is there, all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Accounts payable in the amount of, I saw it a minute ago. $73,290.27. I will make a motion to pay the bills in that amount. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a question.
Okay.
I see this thing for a big expenditure, Baker, Tilly, Virtue, and Kraus. What is that for?
Our accounting.
It's just accounting, okay.
Our audit, bookkeeping.
Okay, all right. I just want to ask the question. Thank you.
Who made the first motion?
I did.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Who seconded, Roger?
I did.
You did? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor again signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Adjournment of the village board. Who wants the honors?
I'll give the honors. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you, guys. Gal.
Yep.
Hold on.